Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary and Alec Crowdhamel. Quite a bit to go over today. Rutgers won its season finale on the hard court against Minnesota last night. Big Ten tournament is set for the basketball side of things. Rutgers men's made it. We'll talk about where they're seated at, who they're playing. Football got another commitment in the class of 2026 on Friday night. Go over him and his game, and there was a pretty big contingent of recruits at the basketball game on Sunday. We'll go over some reactions from that. But before we get into any of that, this podcast is once again presented to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned vet or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from the NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with the odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, so Rutgers got a win last night in overtime in a game that never should have went to overtime, but you guys were both at the game. Alec, why don't you take us off the top here? What were your impressions of how the game went and kind of how Rutgers looks as the Big Ten tournament starts this week?
Yeah, like you said, it was a game that probably shouldn't have gone to overtime to begin with. Rutgers led by 9 at halftime. I think they led by it says the largest lead was that was the last lead. They led by as much as 11 earlier on in the second half. They really started to, it looked like they were, getting baskets and getting ready to run away with the game. Minnesota was a mess offensively in a good stretch of the end of the first half into the beginning of the second half. They missed like 12 straight shots. They had a shot clock violation or two. And then they started attacking the rim, and then things really started to get going. And then bit by bit, Minnesota just fought and made a comeback and eventually tied up the game. And then took the lead, and then the lead was traded a bunch of times. There were 17 lead changes and 10 ties in this game, which obviously is a lot. And eventually, it was kind of just back and forth from there. Once Minnesota made that big run, they went on a 10-0 run at one point to take a lead, and they kept trading baskets, trading leads throughout the rest of regulation. Rutgers had a chance to win it in regulation, but they couldn't get it done. Dylan Harper got stripped of the ball on the last possession, and they went to overtime. And it seemed like they really came out with a different intensity level in overtime, I will say. They scored the first couple buckets. Dawson Garcia then got a bucket, but then they got a couple more buckets, and they just kept that lead up. And then they ended up holding them off to close the game. I thought the defense played pretty well. At times, Minnesota couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. They shot 2 for 16 from 3, which is a nice change from the last Rutgers game, which obviously was the 30-point drubbing by Purdue. Rutgers themselves didn't have their usual scoring output. They shot 42%, 4 of 17 from 3. Although late in the game, Dylan Harper got into a lot of his isolation heavy, where he's at his best, and really took over that game. He had a game-high 22 points. Really, I wouldn't say a lot of people on Rutgers shot very well, but Harper got to the basket and did what he needed to do late to really carry Rutgers' offense late. Ace Bailey didn't have his best game shooting-wise. He was only 3 of 11 from the floor, didn't get to the free throw line, but he had 9 rebounds again. So, it feels like a lot of times whenever Ace's shot isn't there, he's still rebounding, which is definitely a good sign. Dylan Grant actually was a very nice bright spot, 12 points, 5 of 5 shooting, 6 rebounds. It seemed like he's kind of starting to find himself again after having some struggles down the stretch in February. But yeah, this is a game obviously Rutgers need to have. If they lost this game, they would have had to go up against Iowa in the first round, which we know is a bad matchup for the Scarlet Knights and has been for years now. I guess to look at some of the other stats. Each team had 44 points in the paint, which is absolutely ridiculous. Neither team could get a stop at the rim. When Minnesota was making their run to retake the lead, it just seemed like they got whatever they wanted at the basket. Frank Mitchell came off the bench, was 6 of 6 from the floor, 12 points, 11 rebounds. He was probably one of the better players on the floor next to Dawson Garcia. And then I don't think he played at all in overtime, which was a little weird to me, which helped Rutgers get ahead. But a good win on senior day, finish off the regular season with some good morale boosting and head into the Big Ten tournament as the 11 seed to take on USC.
So I don't even know where to start. I mean, it was a good game, I guess, because they won. But like, it's so defeating because like you hear boos in the second half after they came back, and they should have never came back in the first place. It just goes back to the Rutgers defense struggle. Well, I shouldn't even say their defense; their offensive struggles in this one. No one else can score. Like it was just Dylan Harper's show, and Dylan Grant had a solid game, mind you. He went 5 of 5, I think, in limited minutes, which again, weird. Maybe not limited. I guess he played a lot more towards the end.
Yeah,
But the
32 minutes.
rotations were awful. Like it's just the same things over and over again. You're still running a 9-man rotation in March. Like it just, and no one can score at the rim. No one, and they just continue to take a ton of mid-range shots. Their 3-pointers are just, even wide open shots are just gone. That was one of the worst games I've ever seen out of Ace Bailey shot-wise. Like the decision making was awful. He seemed like he really didn't even want to be there. I hate to sound negative, but like it's just like there's nothing to look forward to. Like, yes, they might beat USC in the round one. They play Purdue, who beat you by what, almost 30, and then 20 in the previous matchup before that. It's just I hate to sound so negative here. This season has just been so brutal. Like Tyson Acuff, 1 of 6. Jermichael Davis, 1 of 2. Like Jeremiah Williams, I think went 3 of 8. And it's just there's so many issues with this team. It's maddening because we're just going to hear about it nonstop for the next month and a half with the drafts coming up, 2 months, whatever it is. When's the draft? June? May? I forget.
June. Yeah.
June. Okay, so we're going to hear for a couple months. It's just, could they make a run? Sure. I guess they could. Nothing's ever out of the realm of possibility. But as much as that was a win, it almost just feels like a closure moment too. It's like, all right, it's finally done. Like it's over. Like that was just a brutal season. I don't know what they do. That being said, Dylan Harper continued to show he's one of the best in the game. I have a hard time seeing and I've watched Cooper Flag a lot more over the past couple weeks. I just have a hard time seeing Cooper as the better guy right now for the draft. But Dylan's just more complete. Dylan's just more sound and solid and can do it all. He can score if he needs to. He can play point or facilitator if he needs to. I thought that the rotations, like I said before, were very questionable. Throwing Martini out there after Lathan was getting abused was a little bit questionable. They continued to struggle to defend the paint. Rebounding was meh. It wasn't as bad. I know the numbers are almost very similar, but there's just so many moments where a guy like Frank Mitchell came in. Frank Mitchell doesn't even play for Minnesota most of the time. He's not that good. He's small. He's not small. He's thick, but he's undersized at 6'8", and was just able to get a damn near double-double. Or he did get a double-double. I take it back. They continue to have the same issues, and it seems like nothing's getting fixed, even though I know the season's coming to an end, but you still want to try to fix these issues going forward. And it just proved that I hate to say they're incompetent, but this coaching staff needs to be shuffled around quite a bit this offseason. I, again, hate to sound super negative here because it was a win at the end of the day, and they looked good in overtime, like Alex said. And then looking at the second half, I just realized this now, and me and Alex just did the math, but 1 of 18 from 3 between both teams in the second half and overtime.
Jesus.
They went 0 of 5 from 3 in Minnesota, and they still were able to come back. It's just no one made more than 2 buckets in the second half, other than Dylan Harper, who went 3 of 10 in the second half, because he needs to shoot everything because no one else can shoot. I'm so done with this roster. I want to purge the roster for next season because that's probably the only hope you have at this point. It's not like it's going to be better next season. You're losing your 2 5-stars. You're losing several seniors.
You don't have the guys who've been in Michael's system for 4 years anymore coming back to lead the team.
Well, you got Jeremiah Williams who will be here for a 3rd year potentially, unless he wants to leave too, which he could potentially do, and he could probably go make some money. I mean, Dean Reber made money.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's just I am just glad it's over. I'm glad they ended it on a high note, I guess, sort of, even though it's the Big Ten tournament's kind of Wednesday, but. And they'll probably win that game, to be honest with you. But I just can't see any way in hell they beat Purdue.
It is kind of crazy. Sorry, Mike, to cut you off. It's kind of crazy looking at the scoring splits, how Minnesota got its points. Mm-hmm. In the second half, they went 0 of 5 from 3. They had 22 points in the paint, 8 points from free throws, and then 2 points from, I guess, a mid-range jumper outside the paint. That was how they got all their points in the second half. And then Rutgers pretty much did the same thing in overtime. Of their 14 points, 10 of them were in the paint, and then 4 of them were from the free throw line. It was actually kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back and look at like when Peichel has had success, like first off, he benefited greatly from having these COVID guys. You know, we got Gio back for an extra year. We got Ron for longer than we probably normally would have. I know he had 1 year of eligibility when he went to the league, but he was a fifth year guy at the time. You know, Cliff obviously got the extra year and came back. Caleb got the extra year and came back. Like, over and over, he was getting the benefit from those guys staying in the system for 1 extra year. And, like, that's just not going to be the way things go moving forward. You're not going to have a fourth-year guy coming back for his 5th year. You're not going to have a 5th-year guy coming back for his 6th year for a few logistical reasons. But I don't really have any faith that they're going to be able to figure out how to win and navigate in today's game in terms of, you know, the free agent heavy side of things, the adaptability of your roster. Like we saw it this year. We had a wildly different roster construction than we've ever had, and they still tried to play this Rockhead style, this ISO BS offense. Like, I don't know. I if you would have told me, like, put me in a time machine and 4 months ago told me this is how the season would have played out, I wouldn't have believed you. Like, I just wouldn't. I just had way too much faith that they would figure it out, and they've never shown any propensity to change or figure things out on the fly. So, like, anything that has been a gain has been like, oh, this 3rd-year guy is finally, like, learning all the intricacies of Peichel's system. Like, think about when, like, Mawat Mag was finally coming on. Like, it's just, he had been, you know, just doing, you know, figuring out how to play in Peichel's system after being in the system for 3 years. And it's just really tough to get young guys or first-year guys, unless they're already, like, elite-level defensive players, to play in Peichel's system. That to go on top of, like, the bad evaluations we saw in the transfer portal market. And sure, there's some things you can point to in terms of, you know, the limited availability they had in terms of money to spend. But the guys that they brought in, it's not like they paid them nothing. They just couldn't play. So that and a little bad luck, like the Tyson Acup thing. Like, maybe if he doesn't break his foot, is he a guy you can rely on? He's your go-to 3rd guy, maybe. You know, he's shown flashes of that this year. Obviously, he's shown the ability to be a number 1 scorer on teams. He's shown the ability to be a complementary or scorer on other teams. So I don't know. I think he's, like, Steve Peichel is definitely on thin ice after this season.
Yeah. I mean, all these smaller schools can do it with less money. Not even the same amount of money. So it's like, I don't know. You just got to pray this revenue sharing is going to help you somehow, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't really know. But like you said, hot seat next year. Like, you got to figure it out, or you're probably cooked, to be honest.
Yep. So Rutgers, I think last time we talked, they were basically, like, almost a lock to make it to the Big Ten tournament, but obviously with this win, it rockets them up. We talked about where their kind of standings are. I'm going to pull up the bracket right now. Rutgers finished as the 11th seed in the Big Ten tournament, so they'll be taking on USC in the late game on Wednesday night against USC. So that's roughly going to be an 8:30 p.m. tip. You're not going to know right away because you see how it's staggered out. The first game is at 3:30, and then the Minnesota-Iowa game starts 25 minutes after the first game ends. So if that game goes to overtime, you know, that could change the start time. But roughly 8:30 is what we're looking at. And you guys said it, but playing Purdue in the second round, they have not played Purdue well in a long time, and that'll also be the late game on Thursday if they make it. You got to think, if they could have somehow found a way to play against Illinois or Wisconsin, you feel a lot better about that path, especially if they were to play Wisconsin. Then you match up with UCLA in that second round or the third round, hypothetically. That's a way easier path than the one they find themselves on. If you can somehow get to Michigan, I just really don't see them beating Purdue. I think Purdue is just so much better of a team than Rutgers, and they've shown that in both games this year.
I mean, hell, John Rothstein called the game the other night. when they played Purdue, like with 10 minutes left, and tweeted out the Matt Painter thing, like death taxes Matt Painter. And I was like,
Yep.
gee, dude, there's 10 minutes left in this game. That's insane.
Yep. So that's where the Big Ten tournament stands. Let's shift things over to football. We got a recruit that committed on Friday night, a linebacker out of Ohio. Rich, why don't you tell us about the new commitment for the class of 2026 for Rutgers football?
Yeah, Joey Kopec out of, I forget what the hell his high school is. It's like CWCA or something like that. I'm going to pronounce that one wrong. Cuyahoga Valley Christian Academy out in Ohio. 6'2", 200-pound linebacker. Plays a little bit of safety, kind of a hybrid linebacker in his high school route. We an outside backer at Rutgers. Does track and field, does basketball, obviously football. This is Zach Sparber's first get as the linebackers coach / defensive coordinator. They feel like he's an under-the-radar guy. They feel like he actually has a ton of potential and a really good player. They think he's a Deion Jennings-esque type. If you remember when Deion Jennings committed, he was technically a safety recruit that would arguably bump down depending on how he added weight. That's kind of the same mold as this guy. I think he's 6'2", 200. Yes, 6'2", 200 right now. So he's going to have to add some weight, but super fast kid, super athlete. 4.43 hand-timed 40-meter dash or 40-yard dash. So take that with however you want to translate that to a laser. Last couple seasons, 22 touchdowns on offense, really good production on defense. Rangy, good athlete, great speed. It's a guy that Shiano thinks he can mold into something. Is it a little bit of a reach? I'll say yeah, probably, because it's an early reach. You don't want to reach on kids like this, I feel like, early. He's also visited it and camped at several different Power 5 schools and never got an offer, whether it's been to Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, Pittsburgh, Purdue, and Iowa State, even Cincinnati, and not one of them offered. It's all MAC schools that have offered so far. It's a little bit concerning. I feel like might be a little bit of a reach early on, but who knows? Maybe down the line could turn into something. And you got to trust Shiano with defensive guys. He's got an eye for talent, of course. So we'll wait and see how he develops.
Yep. Athletically looks the part on tape, but like you said, just kind of have to see how his senior year goes. This basketball game, though, to kind of move along, was a big recruiting visit day for not only football, but basketball as well. Talk about the reaction from some of the kids who were at the game. Who were some of the players at the game in terms of level of recruit, and if you feel like there might be a commitment on the horizon based on the visit.
Yeah, there was I think it was around 25 to 30 kids when it was all said and done that showed up. A lot of 4-stars, a lot of like out-of-state 4-stars, which is always interesting. Peter Bork, the quarterback out of Massachusetts, Tabor Academy, coached by Jeff Moore. Jeff Moore used to be at Loomis Chaff, and that's where that relationship kind of stems from with Rutgers and him. He actually was really impressed with just how Kirk Shiraka is, how he handles the quarterback room. Spent a lot of time with his son, too, Cade Shiraka, who's helping out with those quarterbacks. Just kind of got to build that bond with Rutgers. And this is a kid that I kind of had leaning towards Penn State recently, but I think Rutgers made up a lot of ground with this visit. It was his first to campus, so it was a good job there. A couple of Virginia kids came up to campus. 2028 quarterback Charles Scott Jr., linebacker, 2026 kid Matthew Kanu. Is that high 3-star? I think he should be a 4-star when it's all said and done. Spoke with Zach Sparber in depth, really got to know him, got to understand him, said he's a very smart coach, very knowledgeable. Brandon Murray, who we submitted future cast for recently, another Virginia kid, corner, came up to campus. He's going to come back up during the spring for a spring practice visit. Sounds like that's just about locked up. Kind of raved about the two coaches, the two new DB coaches, and David Rowe and Vic Hall. Chris Hewitt Jr. was there, raved about his relationship that he started to build with those defensive coordinators. I do find it interesting because we did say it was kind of just an in-title thing, but it feels like the coaching staff's making it known that they are co-DCs and not just linebackers coach and play caller, because they all said something about, I met both defensive coordinators. So it's always something to note. Elias Koch spent some time with John McNulty. Cool little tidbit there, considering McNulty's back on staff. And for the first time in a long time, he's not working with the or the quarterbacks. He's working with the wide receivers now. So, who else? I'm trying to think. Donovan Johnson. I submitted a future cast for. Interior offensive lineman, 6'3", 6'4", 325, out of North Carolina. Built a very good bond with Scott Vallone, Coach Flats. Told me Rutgers is his number one. You can check out that article on the site. Expecting a decision there kind of relatively soon. He has a couple different Power 5 offers, Wake Forest, Duke. Who else missing? There's a bunch of the local Power 5s down in the North Carolina, Virginia area. Kentucky, West Virginia, Pittsburgh. The only one that he's visited that hasn't offered is NC State. But we've seen NC State do this multiple times now. What they did with Ben Black, they did it with one of the, I think it was Michael Clayton down in Georgia last year, or someone else. I forget who it was. It was an NC State kid. It may have been Ja'Carrion Keenan, but he ended up flipping eventually. But
Was
they
it
don't offer
Stephen
these.
Murray?
Maybe it was Stephen Murray. You might be right. I forget who it was exactly, but they do this every year where they don't offer kids early. Rutgers gets them committed. And then 6 months down the line, they're like, shit, that kid's actually pretty good. Maybe I should offer him. And then they try to flip him, and it just doesn't work out. I think Donovan Johnson, good chance of committing. I think Brandon Murray, there's a good chance of committing. They had Miles McAfee, a 27 wide receiver, who's probably going to be like a top 100 kid when it's all said and done on campus. It was just a good visit to get these kids on campus. They looked pretty excited to just be at the basketball game. You get to see 2 future NBA players in Dylan and Ace, so that's always cool. You get to check out the atmosphere. And I thought another cool thing, going back to Miles McAfee, I said he's going to be a top 50. He's top 32 right now, so I'm an idiot. Ignore that. But I thought it was cool the way they pitched it to him. And this is something that we've known about personally, but I don't think a lot of fans know it. Like when you get a top kid that's like in the top 30, like probably maybe a 5-star down the line on campus, you think it's like roll out the red carpet, give him anything he wants, whatever. Shiano's basically saying like, nah, dude, you got to come here and earn it. Like it's not that easy. You can't just walk in the building and be like, I'm the guy. Like he said, Dave Brock kept it real with him. He thinks he could develop him like just like he's developed his NFL receivers in the past. Said Shiano basically just said life at Rutgers is not easy. It's going to be hard. And if you can do it day in and day out, we'll get you to that next level. And that's always been the selling point. But I just feel like a lot of people think it's just all ponies and rainbows. And it's like, oh, here's this, here's that, take this. Like, here's the carpet. Like you want the block R? It's yours now. Like, so it is interesting, just a selling point on how he does that. But that's pretty much it. It was a pretty good visit though.
Basketball had Duron Rippey on campus as well. Mm-hmm. How did the visit go for him?
I talked to his dad this morning. I was going to say yesterday, this morning, and he said it went very well. They got to hang out with the staff. Question, I shouldn't say this out loud, but it's not like the NCAA is stalking our podcast. I don't think you can take pictures in jerseys anymore, but they did. So it's like,
yeah,
whatever. I don't care personally. I think it's a stupid rule by the NCAA, but anyway, he's still probably going to end up at a blue blood when it's all said and done. I think Rutgers is doing a good job of recruiting him. If he doesn't go to a blue blood, I could see them ending up at Rutgers. But right now, I still have him pegged to end up at a blue blood. They're pushing for him though, and we'll see if it happens. But I think this season's also kind of hurt them on the recruiting trail quite a bit, and it's an easy sell for other teams and other coaches to be like, hey, look what they just did with those guys. Like, sure, Dylan increased his stock, but like they didn't even make the tournament. So it's going to be tough selling recruits, I think, going forward. And I think it's interesting, and it's going to be tough with the portal too. But that being said, he said he had a really good time. They always have. They've never really said they've ever had a bad time on a visit. Let's be honest here. It's a lot of nonsense with these quotes, but I don't know. Sometimes you get a good one.
Yeah, it's mostly the same stuff, but it sounds like everybody had a good time. One commitment that seems to be on the horizon, right, Rich?
1, 2. Donovan Johnson, probably. Brandon Murray, probably. After that, it's a guessing game. They have Peyton Falzone coming to campus this Wednesday, so that'll be something to note. Although he hasn't scheduled an official visit yet, and I kind of don't think he will. Or I don't think he will end up at Rutgers. I think he's going to end up elsewhere as of right now. Could that change? Could NIL change everything in a second? Yes, and that's just the way recruiting works now. So we'll see how that visit goes on Wednesday. But as of right now, I think Donovan Johnson's probably next up, and Brandon Murray's probably going to be pretty close behind him.
Good to hear. A lot of interesting little nuggets to follow moving forward. I don't have anything else on the Rutgers side of things, but we do have our giveaway to announce.
I forgot about that.
Our 400th episode celebration giveaway. As I pull this up, Rich, do you want to go over the prizes that are up for stakes here?
See, here's that problem. I forget what they were. I know it's a Dylan Harper card. I know it's a Slam magazine.
Yep, I think those are the two prizes.
Is that what it was? I thought it was something else. Maybe I'm wrong. That was an Ace Bailey jersey, but I'm not sure. I got to double check on that one.
No, it wasn't the Ace Bailey jersey.
No.
Wasn't the Ace Bailey jersey the last one?
You're correct. Yes, that was the last one. All right, see, I'm all like, one Dylan Harper Ace Bailey magazine, not signed, just so you know. I don't have the Fanatics approval.
So we have our giveaway wheel here set up. Everybody's names from the comments and also our Apple reviews. Without further ado, though, let's do this. The first winner will get the Dylan Harper autographed card. The second winner will get the Slam magazine. Anybody who wins, please contact Richie at areyourichie@gmail.com to claim your prize, or you could DM him on Twitter or Instagram. But let's spin this wheel. See who wins the autographed card.
Damn, we had 115 people. Huh.
So, I'll let the sound die first. The winner of the autographed Dylan Harper card is Sax Money on Apple Podcasts. Sax Money, you are the winner. Congratulations. Reach out to Richie to claim your prize. I'm going to remove him now. Let's see who wins the magazine. All right. The winner of the magazine is Scarlet_Night07 on Apple Podcasts. Congratulations. You are the winner of the Slam magazine. So again, both of you guys need to contact Richie to claim your prize. And thanks once again to everybody who entered and who gave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app. Really helps to grow the show, and we really do appreciate all you guys out there. Anything else you guys wanted to hit on before we head out of here?
I don't know if you had anything, Richie.
Well, yeah, wrestling. I mean, kind of
Right.
not so great showing this weekend. I think a couple of them finished in 6th place, and that was the highest, I believe. Walsh kind of got screwed over, I thought. That was a pretty illegal move by Ryder Rogotsky, I thought. Just slam his head into the ground, but
he did get the win.
Oh, he did get the win for that.
Yeah, so what happened was...
he had to forfeit the next round, so it didn't matter because he's...
Well, he had already punched his ticket. Like, getting that win punched his ticket to Nationals. Okay. So it didn't... I'm not going to say it didn't matter, but it didn't, screw him over all that much. I guess...
make a run, potentially.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
In the consolation of the Bresselbacks or whatever.
I'm sure he wanted to, but he'd already punched his ticket to the NCAAs. So that's good. I forget. I think they have 5 or 6 guys headed to the NCAAs. Let's see. I think Dean Pete or Yaroslav Slavakuski ended up getting injured.
Dean got hurt too, right? And that's why he missed
Dean got hurt, but he had already punched his ticket, which he hurt his knee. Slavakuski ended up having to withdraw, I think, due to injury. And he'll have to. He didn't clinch his spot, so he'll have to try to get an at-large, which he should at least, because I think he's been a top 10 seed for most of the year, so he should be good for an at-large. Trying to think of who else. I think Jackson Turley's also fighting for an at-large after the Big Tens. Trying to think of who else. Unfortunately, not the best showing for the team in the weekend. Hopefully they can get some of that momentum back during the NCAAs. So and then baseball had a good start to the weekend. They beat Iowa 5-4 on Friday. Then Saturday they get destroyed 16-0, and then they lose 12-6 on Sunday. So not a great weekend for Rutgers baseball, unfortunately.
Pitching stinks, man. It's just flat out bad.
Yeah, it's definitely struggled. Rutgers women's basketball, they lost to Nebraska. I think the last pod we recorded was the day of the game, so it hadn't happened yet. But they lost 84-60 in the first round. Yeah.
I have a question, and we don't have to go in depth on this, or we can once all the spring sports are over. Is this the worst 3-4 month span of Rutgers athletics? It feels like it. It feels pretty hurt right now.
If you're talking about relative to expectations,
yes, because you can't say the worst ever, because there was an Eddie Jordan Chris Ash crossover at one point.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I mean, if you extend it back to September, based on the hype that we had around the football team. I mean, it's got to be up there.
It's just rough. I feel like there's just been so much negative instead of positive, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, you think of the women's soccer team, that heralded freshman class from 2021. I think I think they made the College Cup their freshman season.
Yeah,
and then this is supposed to be their big year as seniors, and they kind of fizzled out. They've just haven't had, I think, the level of success they were expecting. And a lot of sports could probably say that as well. So
just the whole athletic. So football injuries obviously played a factor. Basketball didn't make the tournament. Baseball looks like they're shitting the bed and regressed again. Softball, they're okay. They're not bad. They actually just threw a no-hitter this week, which we didn't talk about. But women's basketball has a superstar that's on social media messing things up. The AD's doing some sneaky stuff with a different coach. It's just a bad sequence. No, by the way, lacrosse lost to Stony Brook recently. It's just you get the notifications on the Rutgers app, and it's just loss. They're 118th in the Learfield rankings after fall. 100, and that's the third lowest in all of Power 4 sports. I didn't include Oregon State and Washington State, but they're the only two that are kind of lower. It's just been rough. It's been a rough couple weeks, and I was hoping maybe basketball make a late season run, and I was hoping baseball might be better. Give me something to grasp on. I feel like I'm grasping at straws here.
You are. It's been a down year overall. We all had high hopes for this athletic year, and as it's kind of winding down, I think we're all collectively pretty disappointed at how it turned out, because this was supposed to be a banner year, maybe the best year in school history. If we're talking about collective achievement, and that definitely has not been the case this year.
Yeah. Well, portal opens up in a couple weeks, so we'll get some excitement there. Yeah, we'll see what they can do. It'd be interesting.
You guys, we were talking about this off the pod, but if Rutgers does end up playing in that tournament in Vegas, the Crown tournament, that kind of screws the start of the portal up, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of players who don't participate in that, so it would be potentially a disaster for a couple of reasons. So
not just for Rutgers. I question how that's going to work, because the portal opens a week before it even starts. So how do you expect teams to prepare for games while also battling with the portal? I apparently that there's an obligation to play, so there's not really going to be many opt-outs for teams, but I'm sure they're going to try at least a little bit.
Well, the obligation too is the fact that it's sponsored by Fox. The automatic qualifiers for it are the Big 10, the Big East, and Big 12. So they're going to get all Big 10, Big East, and Big 12 teams.
I think you get TV money from it too.
Yes, it's you get TV money, but they don't pay apparently. So whoever put that out there is just wrong. But the tournament features 16 teams, 2 automatic qualifiers from the Big 10, Big East. So there's 6 right there. The next 10 are going to be probably from those conferences for the most part. And I think it said it's going to bring in, a couple mil over, a little over $1 million per conference over the next couple years per year. I forget what it is exactly, but they're going to get invited to it probably just because of Ace and Dylan, and you can't really say no. I feel like, or you can't say no. You just said so. Yeah, they're they're going to play in it, and then there goes your what do you call it? There goes your
portal,
chance to start out the portal
getting
pretty
a head
easily.
start in the portal. Yeah.
Well, the portal opens the 24th, and Danny Hurley said this yesterday, actually. And he goes, I have multiple guys that are entering the portal. I have multiple guys that know where they're going already. If Peichel's not back channeling and tampering right now, I'd be furious. Like, that's the only way you could do it. Because these guys are going to enter the portal and you're like, hey, man, it's Steve. Oh, yeah, I picked my location like 3 weeks ago, dude. Like,
Yeah, not great. We'll see how it goes. Like we said, how many times this season? We'll just see how it goes. Tired of getting pretty tired of saying it, but
anyway,
that's all we got for you guys today. Thanks once again for listening. We'll have a pod on Wednesday or probably Thursday, more likely, to go over the maybe end of the basketball season. Maybe have some recruiting updates. But I want to thank everybody once again for listening. For me, Richie and Alec, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.